Warning: the following presentation is intended for mature audiences and it contains graphic descriptions of crime scenes, adult dialogue, and strong language. This podcast represents the opinions of the hosts and their guests, and every effort is made to ensure that information is accurate. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome, fellow armchair detectives. I'm your host, Ashleigh Petersen.
And I'm your host, Tamlyn Rossouw.
And this is Just in Crime. Join us as we explore the issue of gender-based violence and femicide in South Africa
by exploring the victims and their stories. Shafieka Petersen was an unemployed mother of a 2-year-old daughter named Mishka. They lived in a rented one-room apartment with a small separate entrance into Tupelo court, where the man who lived with them murdered them and hid their bodies. This is the case of Mishka and Shafieka Petersen. Today we're back in the Western Cape, where 38-year-old Shafieka Petersen rented a room with a small separate entrance in a backyard in Tupelo Street in Delft. She had a 2-year-old daughter named Mishka, and 49-year-old Paul Evans lived with them. Shafieka and Evans had met on Facebook and started dating briefly after, and they were also both unemployed.
I just want to jump in here for 2 seconds. Who meets on Facebook? Instagram, we have DMs, so I guess that's a thing. And then Tinder is designed for people to meet up. But Facebook's just weird. Why would you meet anyone and start dating them that you met on Facebook?
It definitely is weird since, like you said, there are many apps. I mean, there's Hinge and there's Bumble and all of these things. So yes, I find it very odd that they met on Facebook. But later on, you're going to see a pattern happening with Facebook in particular, so make a mental note. While living here, their landlord was 52-year-old Themba Malchus, and on the 23rd of November 2017, his girlfriend told him about a bad smell that was coming from the tiny room that Shafieka was renting in the backyard. Themba and his other tenants then forced open the security gate and the door of the room, and this is where they found Shafieka's 2-year-old daughter, Mishka. But she wasn't alive, and she was stuffed in a cupboard. Her tiny body was shoved into a kitchen cupboard, and it was wrapped in blankets. And dude, I saw the photos of the cupboard, and it's really not that tiny. And you guys can go check out on our Instagram and Facebook pages. We do have crime scene photos attached to that. So yes, she definitely could have fit in there without being cut up into pieces. But at the time of discovering Mishka's body, police did not realize that there was more to the story and that there was another gruesome discovery that was going to be made. They didn't realize that Shafieka's body was also in the room. So on the 25th of November, which is 2 days after Mishka's body was found, the landlord stated that the smell of death did not subside. So he called Shafieka's sister and they went back into the room. That's when they found Shafieka's maggot-ridden body hidden inside a plastic tub. It was wrapped in blankets and it was hidden under a table. In a statement, the landlord said that at first he thought it was clothing in the tub because he didn't think an adult could fit into a tub of that size. And he further added that he had last seen Mishka and her mother Sunday the 19th of November and her boyfriend Paul Evans for the last time a day later. At this point, Evans was nowhere to be found, but he was found a day later by the investigating officer, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Tiebus, who followed up on information on the whereabouts of the alleged suspect and tracked him to Eendekale near the N7 highway on the west coast, and that's when he took him into into custody. He was set to make an appearance at the Belleville Magistrates Court the following week. And before we jump into the court proceedings, be sure to check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Just in Crime SA for more episodes, case-related content, updates, and other riveting content.
Also, always keep in mind, we are not professionals in any of the discussed fields. If you or anyone you know is in danger, you can find resources on our social media pages, or alternatively, you can contact the Gender-Based Violence Command Center at 0800 428 428 or SMS HELP to 31531.
Wednesday, the 29th of November, 2017, a thin-looking Paul Evans, who wore a grey t-shirt and jeans, made his first appearance at the Belleville Magistrates Court, where he shocked everyone by admitting he had confessed to the crimes to the police. Evans first told the court that he wished to appoint a legal aid lawyer, and then he dropped another bombshell. He said that there was another crime scene, and this was at an address in Eden Road at Walmer Estates. Make a mental note. It was not revealed what crimes had been committed at the address. Evans was facing a charge of double murder following the killing of the Delft mom, Shafieka Petersen, and her toddler, Mishka. The state also indicated that they would be opposing bail. When he was asked whether he understood that there was a confession, he said yes, he was aware. The matter was postponed to January 11th for further investigation and a bail application. So, as if this case hasn't had enough surprises, it was also revealed in court that he was previously convicted for murder and he was sentenced to 25 years behind bars. He received the death penalty in 1992, but made an appeal, and in 1994, he was granted life imprisonment. It was not revealed what he was sentenced for. So Ash, before I carry on with the story, I know you explained to us what life in prison in South Africa meant in episode 2, which was the case of Antoinette du Plessis, but do you care to explain it again for the people who missed it?
Okay, so life in prison in South Africa. As I mentioned in the other episode, life in prison in America and other countries around the world means you are spending your life there. From the moment you enter to the moment you die, that is where you will spend your time unless your case is overturned. However, in South Africa, life means 25 years. Once you've served your 25 years, you are then able to apply for parole. If your parole is declined, you can then apply every 2 years then after, which makes sense as to why he could have received life in prison and still served his sentence, and that's why he could still be out.
Okay, thank you so much for explaining that. I definitely was a bit confused about that. But I had no idea that this is how sentencing worked in South Africa. But on another note, this is a situation of just intimate partner violence. Unfortunately, intimate partner violence is a common social problem with global relevance. And just to put it in perspective, 1 in 5 women have experienced violence from a partner in their lifetime, which essentially means intimate partner violence is a leading cause of death and disability for women worldwide. But back to the story. Remember how earlier I was saying that Evans gave the location of where another crime had been committed? Well, before Evans moved in with Shafieka, he lived on none other but the Walmer Estate property, the same location where he claimed another crime had been committed. At the property, some of Evans's friends were found, as they were also tenants there. They also revealed that Evans was a tick addict and had lived in a separate entrance at the back of the house for 2 years. The homeowners are family of his, and 2 months prior, Evans moved out to go and live with his girlfriend in Delft. Days before his arrest, he had asked his friends to take him to a drug rehab center. He said he needed help, and he didn't say anything else, of course, says a shocked friend. We heard about all of this, and when he says all of this, he refers to the murders when the police called and asked where Evans was. They obviously gave an address, and this is where Evans's arrest was made. His friend just carried on to say, "We are shocked. Why would he do this? He was on drugs and he had a sentence when he was a juvenile. Why would he say here's a crime scene? It was also further believed that Evans had been stalking single women, especially mothers, on Facebook by sending them private messages. And this is where Facebook comes in, kids. So, according to one woman who asked to remain anonymous, she spoke to the suspect days after he disappeared from the Delft home. But a memorial service was held in December 2017 for Shafieka and Mishka that have been so brutally murdered. The Delft Women Network, the community of Delft, religious leaders, and the police all came to pay their respects to Shafieka and her daughter Mishka. Mourners returned to the house for a memorial service and a wreath-laying ceremony and to pray for change just in their community. Mishka and Shafieka were buried according to Muslim customs. So, CPF chairperson Reggie Mart said the incident had sparked outrage and it was described as pure evil. This incident has wounded a family and wounded the community as well. In the past year, how many lives have been lost and how many more will we lose? We as a community need to join hands with each other and with our churches as well as the police. We need to put an end to these senseless murders and crime in our community. The case was set for trial in the Western Cape High Court and the accused was sentenced by Judge Sali Klope on Tuesday, 13 August 2019. Evans received 2 life terms for the murders and 18 months for defeating the end of justice. Shafieka's family refused to comment about the murders. The Delft Community Policing Forum chairperson, Pastor Charles George, said that they welcomed the sentence, and he added that when justice is served, we get very excited because criminals can't think that they're going to get away with murder. We wish the family everything of the best, and we hope that they now have closure. Police spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Andre Trout commended the dedicated detective who secured the conviction. He said, "The success of our investigation and prosecution depends largely on thorough and meticulous taking of statements, gathering evidence, and presenting the facts of the case in court." The investigating officer, Lieutenant Colonel Tiebus, was praised by the state advocate Megan Blau for sterling investigation work, which led to the successful prosecution and the sentence in his case. The sentences came during the month of August, and this is the time that we celebrate Women's Month nationally. So it is really good that that was at least like a high point and something good that came out of the bad. So, dude, tell me what you think about the case.
I mean, dude, any case that involves any child is just horrific, especially when you hear like, there's no reason to hurt a child, like, ever. And to that degree, to, like, chop up a baby, like, surely we have that, like, there's enough empathy in your heart to stop you from doing that. And, I mean, also, I'm just a little bit curious. What was that juvenile death sentence thing about? Because that is wild. What do you have to do to get sentenced to death as a juvenile? They literally don't do that with anyone.
That is a very, very good question. But I think there's like a lot of red tape surrounding that because he was a juvenile. And also, like, when we just look at the rest of the case, there was a minor involved. So I wish I had like more information to like tell you guys about the case, but I don't.
So, would you say that, what's his name, Paul Evans?
Yes.
His drug use could have been like the reason behind the murders?
I don't think we can ever blame drugs like as a reason for doing something, but I definitely think that drugs could have contributed to the situation.
No, substance abuse is a very complex mental illness, and obviously it has lots of layers, so we can't really go into that. But I think we just need to clarify his drug of choice. So in South Africa, we have a drug, it's called Tuk. And from what I've researched, it says crystal meth, but I think that it is a like cheaper and I guess dirtier, less pure version of crystal meth. So yeah, it's a massive drug used here in many, many communities. But all in all, I would say that case was just very, very hectic. And it's really unfortunate. Like I said, every time there's a minor involved, my heart just absolutely breaks. And I hope that Paul has been put away. He's receiving treatment if he does need it. And that Shafieka and Mishka's memory stays on.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. Be sure to check out our social media for more episodes, case-related content, and other riveting info.
We'd also like to give a massive shout out to Christian Patter for creating our theme song. Be sure to check out more of his work on Instagram at Christian_Patter.
And then we would also just like to thank Anthony Catano for creating our album art. So be sure to follow him at @Catano on Instagram.
And lastly, we'd like to give a huge shout out to VU Media for helping produce this podcast. Be sure to follow them on Facebook and Insta at VU_Media SA.